Think back to the very first science textbook you ever opened. You read about the structure of the atom, the exact number of human chromosomes, or perhaps the 9 planets in our solar system. You memorized those facts because they were printed on crisp paper, backed by authority, and presented as immutable reality. But what if almost half of everything you were taught in that classroom is now completely wrong? In 1947, medical students were taught that stomach ulcers were caused primarily by stress and spicy food. Doctors prescribed bland diets, bed rest, and anti-anxiety medications. For decades, millions suffered unnecessarily under this absolute medical consensus. It was not until 1982, when researchers Barry Marshall and Robin Warren identified the bacterium Helicobacter pylori, that the medical community realized they had been entirely wrong for nearly half a century. Marshall literally had to swallow a beaker of bacteria to prove the point to a skeptical world. This was not an isolated mistake, or a rare fluke of medical history. It is a fundamental property of human knowledge itself. In the early 2000s, Harvard mathematician and network scientist Dr. Samuel Arbesman began tracking how facts age across various academic fields. What he discovered was astounding. Facts do not decay randomly. They decay with predictable mathematical precision, following an exponential decay curve almost identical to the half-life of radioactive isotopes like uranium-235 or carbon-14. Arbesman coined this phenomenon the half-life of facts. Just as a block of radioactive material loses half of its mass over a fixed duration, half of the established knowledge in any given field will be revised, expanded, or outright disproven over a measurable period. In theoretical physics, where fundamental laws are exceptionally rigid, the half-life of facts might extend to over a century. But in fields like neurobiology, clinical medicine, or psychology, the half-life of truth shrinks dramatically to just 40 or 50 years. Have you ever stopped to wonder how much of your own personal beliefs are built on expired knowledge? Consider the realm of hepatitis research. When researchers studied medical literature regarding hepatitis B and C over several decades, they observed a steady, relentless erosion of truth. After 40 years, more than 50% of papers originally categorized as undisputed scientific fact were deemed either completely false or significantly obsolete. Why does this happen so systematically? First, our tools of observation are constantly improving. Centuries ago, light microscopes could only reveal basic cellular structures. Today, cryo-electron microscopy allows us to watch individual protein complexes fold in real time. As our instruments gain resolution, our old models inevitably crumble under the weight of precise new measurements. Second, humanity is currently experiencing an information explosion unprecedented in history. Over 2 million scientific papers are published every single year. More data has been generated in the last decade than in the entirety of previous human existence. With this massive deluge of incoming information, hypotheses that once seemed ironclad are continuously stressed, tested, and shattered. Yet, the most dangerous part of this cycle is not that facts change. It is that human institutions change far too slowly. Consider the replication crisis that rocked the field of social psychology in 2015. When the open science collaboration attempted to replicate 100 high-profile psychology studies published in top-tier journals, only 36% of the replications yielded the same results as the original experiments. Decades of popular self-help books, corporate policies, and educational guidelines had been constructed entirely on a foundation of unrepeatable statistical noise. Think about how long it takes for a new discovery to reach the public. A scientist discovers a flaw in a paradigm today. It takes 2 years to publish the peer-reviewed paper, another 5 years for the scientific community to reach a new consensus, 10 years for that consensus to filter down into university textbooks, and another generation for those textbook facts to become common cultural knowledge. By the time a fact enters a standard elementary school curriculum, its half-life may already be running out. We live with the comforting illusion that knowledge is a solid, permanent skyscraper built block by block upon an unshakable foundation. But in truth, knowledge is more like a living, breathing ecosystem. Old leaves wither and fall, branch structures shift under storms, and new roots continuously push through the soil. So what does this mean for you? It means that intelligence is not about hoarding an army of static facts like gold coins in a vault. Holding on tightly to what you learned 20 years ago is not a sign of wisdom. It is a guarantee of ignorance. True intellectual maturity lies in cultivating a mind that embraces flexibility. A mind that treats knowledge not as a permanent monument, but as a temporary, evolving hypothesis. The most important skill of the 21st century is not the ability to learn, but the far rarer capacity to unlearn.